Okay, so welcome back to the Dork Mother. I've debated and weighed this heavy on my head for a while, and I finally decided that I want to let you all in on my weight loss journey. I was a little hesitant because it's one of those embarrassing things. You're like, I used to be so big, and I really didn't want to put those. I know I'm not skinny by any means, so I'm gonna put pictures up on here as I go. But when I had my son, I had ballooned up to, like, right at the end of my pregnancy, I was like 290 pounds. And I don't know if you can tell by watching the videos, but I'm 5'6", give or take. My husband says I'm shorter than that, but 5'6" is what I'm gonna go with, so. And so that's pretty heavy. And obviously I chalked a lot of it up to, you know, baby weight or whatever, but if I'm going to be honest with myself, I was getting way hefty way long before that. My whole life, I was very, very petite, like thin, wise, to the point where a lot of people thought I was like anorexic, like, and it's even getting back to that point now where, like, not quite as bad, but my collarbones were so visible, I could actually go like this around them and touch my fingers because I had so little meat tissue on my body, which now I have more muscle there, so I can't really do that. A bad part is if I get to a weight that I really, really like on my top half, my bottom half is still too hefty, but if I get to a point where I'm like where I'm at on my bottom half, then my top half is so thin that I look like I'm anorexic. So I have a very mismatched body type, so that's something that I have to mentally deal with and try to find some middle ground. But I did not work out as much as I probably should have doing it. But the bad part is that I waited so long and was so heavy for so long that my joints are shot. And so high impact workouts, like people do CrossFit and stuff like that, is just not feasible for me. And you know, a lot of people say, well, you do squats and stuff like that, that's for butt and thighs and stuff like that, and my knees, I cannot do it. So I'm trying to find new inventive ways, whatever, but honestly, and stuff like that, and I gained probably, I would say, 100 pounds over like a 4 or 5 year span, which is horrible. And then, like I said, it hit a climax when I had my son, and I took the idea of eating for two very, very literally. I could not, how should I say, the whole idea of cravings and stuff like that. I mean, I was very, very sick when I had him, and I was puking all the time, and so anytime that my body would let me eat, I went nuts, which is probably the worst thing you can do. But, you know, it's just one of those things, it's like, I went with it, you know. It's like, if I can eat right now and not puke, I'm gonna do it. So about 4 or 5 months into my pregnancy, the husband decided that he would let me stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, and so I went ahead and quit like 5 months into my pregnancy. And so from that point on, I didn't have any physical activity, you know, other than getting up and doing chores here around the house, feeding the horses, feeding the dogs, stuff like that. So, I mean, it made it worse. And like I said, then taking the whole eating for two thing to the next level. So, once I had my son, I just kind of, I don't know if I would call it postpartum depression. It very well could have been. I mean, I never got diagnosed and I never went on any medication. But, I mean, that could have been what kind of got me to a point where I was just like, I didn't have the ambition to get up and go and do anything like working out and eating better. It took till he was about, I want to say 3, until I was winded chasing after him and winded trying to play with him, and like he'd want me to get on the floor and crawl around with him and do crazy stuff, and I was so big that once I got down there I couldn't get back up. Or if I got back, I'd have to have my husband help me up off the floor. And so it just got to a point where I was just like, I have to do something. So I downloaded an app on my phone called Fat Secret, which I know it sounds like a really crappy name. But what it does is it gives you breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then snack and then you put in there, you know, your weight, your height, what your goal weight is, what your activity level is, and then it gives you what it thinks you need for calorie intake for the day. Okay, well, you can adjust that manually, which is what I did. And I actually put myself on a 1,200 calorie a day diet, which is so hard. And I know that's a lot easier for me to deal with being a stay-at-home mom, where I can decide what time I want to spread my calories out through the day. I mean, I don't think I ever could have done that if I was still working, because, you know, you have your break times and you have your lunch time. And so you have to work around that. And I mean, I know this plan that I use is not going to be workable for everybody. But once I was at 1,200 calories a day, I make sure that all the products that I could switch to 0-calorie or sugar-free, you know, like I cut out alcohol completely, which if anybody knows me, I was a big beer drinker, you know, like summer day, crack one open, you know, and so that one was hard. And then as far as food, you know, like switch from real sugar in my coffee to 0-calorie, you know, packets. And this one was more of a dietary reason, but I went from regular milk to almond milk, which I ended up figuring out that I am lactose intolerant, or moderately lactose intolerant. So also meal prepping was a big thing. I found that because what I used to do is make giant, huge meals, like a giant 1-pot spaghetti dinner, and then me and my husband would eat it for 2 or 3 days, or sometimes eat it all at once, even though we know we shouldn't have. But I found that if I meal prep in either make a meal that is just enough for me and him right that day, so that we didn't eat, you know, overeat or whatever, and measure it out and count it out and weigh everything, or meal prep and section it off in its individual bowls right out the gate, and then, you know, it keeps you more honest, I guess. And I know a lot of health eater people would say that TV dinners are horrible for you, and I totally agree. The sodium levels are out of control. But if you're trying to get in a healthy mindset and eating smaller portions or whatever, sometimes a lean cuisine or a smart one is all you can do. And especially like people who work and, you know, have break times at work, and it's easier to, you know, pack one of them in a lunch if you got a microwave at work or something, than try to prep a whole meal or whatever. And sometimes I find that, like, if you jazz them up, like if you get a spaghetti smart one, you dump it on a plate after it's cooked and swirl it around, maybe, you know, add some spices to it or whatever, and maybe like a piece of garlic bread, you know, it'll feel more real, more, I'll decide and say, you know, I need a change. I need this. Like I said, my motivation was not being able to play with my son. And then the whole idea of losing weight is to expend more calories than you take in. And what I did, as far as that was concerned, is like I have about, I don't know, what's a football field, 100 yards? Like 80 yards between where I keep the horses' hay and where the horses are. And so I have to walk that distance twice a day, rolling like a heavy wheelbarrow-esque kind of cart full of hay. Well, 3 times, because they get 2 carts in the morning and 1 cart at night. But, you know, doing that, and then, you know, taking the dogs out and doing stuff like that. The cleaning around the house, you know, the whole idea of work smarter, not harder. Well, when I'm on my weight loss journey, it's harder, not smarter. I know you think that sounds counterproductive, but the more physicality that you exert, then the better off you're going to be. Another rule that I followed, and like I said, people with jobs and odd hours, like I said, this never worked for my husband, but for me, not ingesting any calories after 8 o'clock, which is super hard, especially like in me, and I like a nice, have a nice cup of tea, late at night, you know, I have some sleepy time tea that zonks me out. Which I know some people say, well, a lot of time tea and coffee aren't have any calories, but I don't take them regular. I like a little milk and a little sugar, all that stuff. Anyways, so, you know, it's very difficult to not have anything after 8 o'clock. Now, the 8 o'clock rule I came up with is, they always say that if you eat anything right before bed, it doesn't have the time to digest and work through your body. It just sits there and in your stomach. And so I usually go to bed no earlier than 10 o'clock. So in my mind, the 8 o'clock rule is it gave my body 2 hours to digest any calories or stuff like that in my body. I went from being a size 22 in jeans to now I'm down to a size 10. Roughly 12, depending on the brand of jeans, but I have gotten into a size 10. So, I mean, I feel like that's a good accomplishment. I know a lot of people go, wow, that sounds like so much. And to me, that is a crazy amount. It was nice to feel the need, like, you don't want to go spend all that money, but it was nice to be like, you know what, husband, I need to go buy new clothes because none of my old ones fit. Like I said, you just have to really want it, and you have to dedicate yourself to it. That's all I can say. But I hope that my story and what I went through and what motivated me to do what I did maybe convinces some other people that yes, it is possible. And just I highly recommend investing in a food scale. It can be a lifesaver, because I was lowballing myself on a lot of portion sizes. Off the back of the patch, it says 3 pieces, and then, or however many ounces, and you weigh it out, and you're like, I was jipping myself. So yeah, I definitely recommend a food scale. I got mine for like $10, not even, on Amazon, and it came with measuring spoons and its own batteries. So, but this has been the Dork Mother. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it motivates somebody to lose weight themselves if they feel the need to. But please come back soon, like and subscribe.